Hello everyone, I'm Extra Cheesy 87 and this is Let's Play Persona 4 Arena Part 19. In the previous video we entered into this TV world with Naoto and we've started to have her make her way through the P1 Grand Prix. We are now using Mitsuru's power to talk to Rize in the announcement room.
Wait, Kirijo? I know that name. That's not important now.
Also, this video could potentially have like an abrupt end or be a little bit shorter. I'm not entirely sure. I don't have like a ton of time to record, but I do want to try and get a video done because I'm not going to be able to record for several days. So I want to have some Persona 4 stuff to go up. Yeah.
Are you a Persona user too?
Yes, but we can discuss that later. I sense a shadow-like presence very close to your position. Are you all right?
The only thing near here is the fake Teddy. Wait, is that what you're talking about?
So it's a shadow.
I was hesitant to make a decision. Kirijo-san does not know Teddy. Of course she wouldn't know his origins. Even if the general was the real Teddy, she would probably think of him as a shadow if she didn't know better. But if the general is merely something else that's taking on his appearance, it leads to a completely different conclusion. That is, it's a shadow from a normal human who doesn't have any tolerance for this world. But if that's the case, then why is the shadow mimicking Teddy? I don't have enough pieces to begin solving this puzzle yet. While I'm in the process of thinking things through, Kirijo-san speaks up.
Shirogane, you need to hurry on. I'll try to maintain communication as best I can and keep you in the loop.
All right then, I'm off. Stay safe.
I nod back to her and start running. Onward. To the announcement room, where Rize-san is being held. Is it in the announcement room, Naoto? As I hurry on, led by the invisible walls, I reach a classroom. I'll be forced into another fight here too, no doubt.
Looks like you're chugging right along! And now, another special guest for you! The gloves may be off putting you up against this one, so I want to see your best moves out there now, Chan!
Oh no, is he not wearing a shirt?
Now, bring out the next opponent!
I see a silhouette framed in the spotlight. It's... well, how could I forget that attire?
You're Akihiko Sanada, as I recall.
Interesting. I've been gone for a while, and here I meet a stranger who knows who I am.
You're a member of Mitsuru Kirijo's organization. Her friend, actually, no?
Oh, I see. So it's really Mitsuru you're interested in, ace detective.
His words caused me to tense up. He just called me Ace Detective. Perhaps that was just a guess for my family name, Shirogane, but he could know that I'm spying on them for the police. I carefully search his eyes for anything that might tell me how much he knows. He looks me over from head to toe, and immediately sneers mockingly.
Jeez, look at you. You have the physique of a 12-year-old.
What?
A detective needs a strong body more than a strong brain.
That's
All-night
not
research
true.
sessions, long stakeouts. You need stamina for that.
Yeah, but you don't need muscle for that. Stamina and muscle are different.
But look at those twiggy arms and legs of yours. You've got an overdeveloped chest, but from the looks of it, I'd say it's all fat and no muscle. Seriously.
God damn it.
What?
What is wrong with him? That's the part of my self-image I'm most sensitive
Let me
about.
teach you the secret to bodybuilding.
What?
First thing, protein. Second thing, protein. Third, fourth, and fifth, more protein.
Feels like that's an easy way to, you know, get gout.
Don't you think that's rather unbalanced?
Sanada-san flexes his muscles like a bodybuilder.
Finally, you gotta spar. 1, 2, ah!
He said sparring, but that punch was meant to do serious damage. This is absurd. However, putting his unhinged talk aside, his skill as a fighter isn't something I should take lightly. Shoot, I can't dodge them all.
Stop it, Akihiko!
Mitsuru?
Sanada-san stops suddenly as a familiar voice echoes through the room.
You're under the effects of an illusion. Shirogane has done nothing. Do not attack.
Kinda
What do you
interesting.
mean? He's the one who attacked me all of a sudden.
I attacked.
Suddenly I remember. That's right, this is all an illusion. I've never met Sanada-san before, so I don't know what his usual self is supposed to be. It's not that far off. On top of that, I allowed the first thing he said to get under my skin. How stupid of me. I let myself get swept up in the situation and failed to realize what was really happening.
From my perspective, it was you who dealt the first blow. We were both being shown an illusion to make us fight each other.
From my perspective, Akihiko is the one who's evil?
Shirogane is an excellent detective and a persona user. I told him everything. He's agreed to cooperate with us. He was originally on the scene as a police observer in this case, so we've already met.
You just thought I explained to Sanada-san what has been happening up until now. It's a relief to learn that despite his appearance, he's actually quite a reasonable man and quick to pick up on things.
That noise-like phenomenon that fogs your senses is already gone. You should be able to communicate normally now.
That's kind of cool, a little different. Maybe not have them fight. We reintroduce ourselves and shake hands.
Looks like I fell for a cheap trick.
I'm sorry for forgetting myself too. I can't even claim to have been unaware of the deception.
I just kind of like the proactive nature of like trying to actually get around the illusion as opposed to just like letting it happen is kind of cool.
So you're a persona user, huh? Well, since fate already brought us together, want to test your skills before you move on?
Oh, okay. Well, at least it's a different reason for fighting. Sanada-san slams his fists together.
Akihiko, you're doing it again. Just cooperate with him.
All right. Come on, Naoto, let's go.
Oh, wait, the tournament rules say...
Yeah, I mean, I think you still just have to fight there, right? Sanada-san walks away. As I figured, he hit the
Are you
wall.
alright?
What's the matter? What happened?
His nose.
I don't know, there's some kind of invisible wall here.
The rules dictate that only the winner of each match can advance. So,
Why don't you just play like rock, paper, scissors? There would be a winner there. Oh no. He was flustered seconds ago, but now Sanada-san has taken on a more lively
So we need
expression.
to have a match, even though we've got nothing against each other. We're fighting after all then, huh? Alright then, come at me!
please go easy on me.
I could almost hear Kiriyo-san sigh in exasperation. But I just think it fits, you know, Naoto and Mitsuru's personalities, just trying to like find a way around it as opposed to just going along with it. So that's kind of neat.
Final. Fight!
Assault down!
Your knees, they belong to me? I did not mean to do that.
I'm a
Oh my god.
assault up! I'm a hit! No way! Assault up!
Okay,
Oh god, I've been grabbed? Is that allowed? Oh god. Please get up. Oh.
okay.
I'm a assault up!
Okay.
No way!
Oh god, I keep thinking that's an attack, but it's a guard for her.
Now is the time! Persona!
Yeah, well, we finally used the circle attack effectively. It's like you have to like, because it goes so far, and then it has to, I guess it would be good for like, you know, if they're at like the edge of the arena or something, but it seems like you just like move forward slightly and then it can't hit you.
That was a great bout. You're good.
About?
What an annoying rule!
Wait a second. That reminds me. I saw that guy calling himself General walking with a girl. If only one person can move on, that's against the rules.
The fake Teddy and Rise-san were together all this time. Then could the girl he's talking about be Rise-san?
Do you
No.
remember the details of what this girl looked like?
Sanada-san tells me about the girl he'd seen. What he said matches the description of the unknown girl Kanji-kun had talked about. Which means that there's a high probability that the person seen walking with her was not the general, but the real Teddy. the very least, this is evidence against the argument that Teddy is the general. This creates another theory though. If this general is not really Teddy, then he's someone else's shadow. And there's only one person that fits the bill. Well, not person per se, but I mean, just because you're like made of metal doesn't mean you're not a real person. Come on, Naoto.
If that girl was
Don't be so
Lapras,
closed-minded.
then, well, is it possible we're dealing with her shadow?
That's right, Lapras. If she had a heart capable of using her persona, then it stands to reason that she could create a shadow. In light of how the events of last year played out, it makes perfect sense. She was kidnapped by someone who threw her into the TV world, creating a reflection of her own heart.
None of the data I have shows any connection between Lapras and Yasagami High. On top of which, I don't see how she'd know about you or your friends.
That is true. I've been having doubts about that as well, but at least I have a feel for what's going on. What Lapras' kidnappers hope to gain from this remains unknown, however. At any rate, it wouldn't be good if the shadows were to run into its owner. Either way, it's best if I head into the announcing room. It's much more logical to restrain the false Teddy since I know his location than it would be to have to search for Lapras somewhere in this world. Still, if that really is Teddy with Lapras, why are they traveling together?
Sheesh, what's that Teddy doing?
Ooh.
I'm sorry I can't help much,
Ooh.
Kirijo-san.
You'll have to forgive me for my meager skills as well. My persona's communication powers are more for operational assistance. A friend of mine from school was much stronger than myself in that respect, but...
Oh, we made them stay in the car or something?
Oh no, it's all that stupid bear's fault anyway. He's a real genius for making people worry.
Man, it's strange running into so many Persona users I've never heard of all at once. I gotta say, brings back memories.
For us, too. We were as surprised as you. Not to say that the possibility of other Persona users hadn't crossed our minds, but to actually meet them.
What you said about a friend from school kinda reminds me of us, too. What was school like for you? I'd like to hear about it.
Well, ignoring Akihiko's current appearance, he was a boxing champion in his student days.
Hey, that dig was uncalled for.
But like, seriously, why won't you wear a shirt?
After that, I don't know what went through his brain, but he started saying he wanted to search for stronger opponents.
He went on a journey to hone his skills? I thought that only happened in comics and old samurai films.
Yeah.
I thought I had to do it, so I did it. That's all.
This piece of wall was shattered by Kirijo-san's voice.
Wait, what's this I'm sensing? It's like a shadow, but bigger.
So it's a big shadow? Well, I mean, like, yeah, but another shadow presence? And it isn't the false Teddy?
Huh? What's going on? That fake Teddy left the announcement room.
Rise-san made a report immediately after that. Sonata-san and I look at each other. It seems like the situation is changing. Sonata-san nods to me, and after taking a small bow, I run off. With no one watching over her anymore, Rise-san was able to summon her persona. The job of providing support moved from Kirijo-san, who not all of us knew, to Rise-san. Rise-san contacted the rest of us and let us talk to each other for a moment.
Risa-chan? Oh, thank God you're safe! Don't worry, the others are here too. We'll rescue you in no time.
When you say we,
Wait, why is Naoto here?
I can't help but smile at this as I tell them about the others I had seen so far. It seems they're all safe for now. And now that we can communicate, we've greatly increased our awareness of the situation and our ability to share information. The general must have known that leaving Rise-san alone would result in this. If he did know, but left her anyway, there must have been something major happening. Either that, or he no longer has any reason to hide. I hurry on while we share what we know. The actual design of this place may differ from the real Yasagami High School, but the general layout appears to be the same. So I climb the stairs and turn the corner. The announcement room should be right there. However, Rise-san calls out a warning before I get there.
Bad news, Naoto-kun! The fake Teddy's back!
I'm too late.
Huh? What the? Is that the real Teddy? Hey, the real Teddy's here too! He's got some girl with him. I don't know her.
The fact that Rise's communication didn't get cut off once General Teddy reappeared is something that's is somewhat worrisome. But then again, General Teddy doesn't have the time to bother watching Rise-san. After all, if the real Teddy and Labras are both right there as well, he has more important things to be concerned with. This confirms that General Teddy is a fake. It's only natural then to assume that he is Labras' shadow in disguise. But that makes things dangerous. The words of power! Labras and her shadow are confronting each other. Rise-san should know the dangers of the situation, but she doesn't know Labras. She might not realize what the relationship is between the girl and the shadow. I have to warn her. But before I can speak, it happened.
Wait, what's with that girl?
The static gets worse.
Rise-san? Rise-san!
Why can't I communicate with her when we're so close? There's something happening in the announcing room. I run as fast as I can towards it. As I reach the door, I hear a loud scream from inside. Ooh. I slammed the door open without a second thought, prepared for a fight. But the attack came from an unexpected assailant. Of anyone in that room, I wouldn't have thought it'd be. Oh my god, you fucking got us, dude. Alright, well I guess it's time to move on to the Persona 3 crew. Alrighty, alright Mitzi, let's go. Late November in the year 2010. The darkness fell without warning. At the same time, the previously busy examination room fell so silent that the man's ears hurt.
Hey, what happened?
He called towards the back of the room, but no answer came. After working for public safety for over a decade, he thought little could faze him anymore, but this was uncomfortably alien. It was no ordinary blackout. If it were, the faint light from the machines running on battery power such as cell phones would remain. But the silence disturbed him even more. He hadn't heard so much as a single cry. As he looked around, he saw a spot in the darkness. Something was giving off an eerie glow as if painted in incandescent pigments. Once his eyes began to adjust to the darkness, he was able to faintly make out the area around that light. The shining spot was revealed as a small, strangely decorated box. One that the man had only just delivered to the forensics unit.
Forensics team! What the hell is...
He called out, still squinting at the shadow of a person he could see at the window before him. So what is, like, oh god, it's been so long since I played Persona 3. So like, if when you're awake during the dark hour, doesn't that mean that you at least have the potential to have a persona, right? Or you are, because you don't have to already have one, right? Because it's the fact that they're awake during the dark hours how they get scouted in the first place? Something like that? I'm guessing, I mean, I would assume the implication here is that this dude already has one, or he has the potential to have one. As the shape resolved, he saw that it was not a person's shadow at all. But he seems like he's like surprised by this whole situation, so he must have like just now be awakening to it. So maybe he doesn't have one yet. He had no word to describe it. At first glance, it seemed to be a coffin. Indeed, that is what it was shaped like. But he had never seen a coffin standing upright, tall as an adult, shining like a dark crystal. Yet that was clearly what the crystalline mass was, squatting in the spot where a window clerk normally stood. And upon closer examination, it wasn't the only one. At desks in front of the evidence shelf next to the reference computer, the objects towered everywhere, as if they had taken the place of humans. Man, it does make me want to play Persona 3 again. It does make me want to play it again.
What are these?
Not gonna happen, because I would save a playthrough for a Let's Play, and I'm not in a position to do a Omega tier long JRPG, but the itch is there. A chill ran down the man's spine. Their people was the thought that instinctively came to mind. Was this the reason he couldn't hear anyone else's voice? Was this because everyone but him was...
What's going on?
Once the fear had set in, it wasn't easy to shake off. His familiar office was starting to look a grotesque netherworld. He felt quite sure that he had to get out. Quickly, he turned and grabbed the knob of the door, through which he had just entered. But...
What the...
It didn't budge. It wasn't that the door was locked, preventing the knob from turning the latch. The knob was completely frozen in place.
Is anyone here? Hey! Let me out!
The man slammed his fist against the door, yelling in desperation. But the sensation he felt when his fist impacted the surface wasn't that of hitting a door. He felt completely at odds with what he saw, as if a picture of a door had been drawn onto a solid wall. It was then the man noticed another light, similar in color to that emanating from the box, could be seen on part of his hand as he swung it forward. It was a ring. And suddenly, he remembered. When he bought it in the small box, he found several bizarre ring-shaped objects within. When he brought in the small box, while handing it over to forensics, he suspected they might be rings to check the theory he put one on. And now that ring was emitting the same eerie light as the box. Though he still had no idea what was going on, it was immediately apparent that it was directly related to the current situation. So maybe the ring is what let you stay awake during the dark hour? The man grabbed the ring with his sweat-slicked fingers and tugged, ready to pull off his own finger if necessary. But just at that
I
moment,
wouldn't take that off right now.
What?
the man can't help but gasp. He looked around but could sense no one inside the room with him. Where had the voice
I'll
come
be there
from?
to rescue you shortly. Calm yourself and wait there.
The man calmed himself. He realized that it wasn't just a voice. The sensation was indescribable, but it was distinctly unlike hearing with one's own
Who's
ears.
there?
Oh, pardon me. This is Mitsuru Kirijo. We met earlier.
Kirijo. He did know a Kirijo. It was she who brought the strange small box. And that wasn't all he knew. The Kirijos were a wicked family who used their fortune and influence as a shield, a constant frustration to the police. Despite that, the man couldn't help but feel relief wash over him. Perhaps he might survive this after all.
Oh, well, I appreciate the help. Just hurry.
Sorry about thinking that your family's wicked or whatever, After getting the muttered words out, he sank to the floor, the door at his back. Tsuru Kirijo, if you recall correctly, she was the eldest daughter of the Kirijo group's founding family. He noted that her voice had been far calmer than his, despite the situation they were both in. He sensed a measure of trustworthiness from her. And to think it had been merely an hour ago that he was asking himself why such a young girl had been chosen as the head of the Kirijo group at all. The digital clock on the corner of the desk quietly announced the arrival of 10 o'clock in the morning. Normally most of the staff would be out and about by now, but the entire police department was in turmoil today. It was only to be expected with a key figure from the Kirijo group visiting on unusual business.
Kirijo, huh?
The Kirijo group is a major trading firm synonymous with Japan. They had links to all areas of business. Not a day could go by in the city without hearing their name. That clock had struck 10 bore the logo of the Kirijo Electronics, and KJA was the carrier for the cell phone provided to every member of the force. A few days ago, the same Kirijo group had made a seemingly insane proposal. The document was hundreds of pages, but a brief summary would read, "We wish to collaborate with the police on an unofficial department for eliminating monsters." What?
Well, it does happen from time to time.
Yeah.
Famous businessmen end up advocating cultish nonsense in pursuit of their ambitions.
Yeah, and sometimes they send letters to the police talking about eliminating monsters. Yeah, that's normal. Upon consideration, it was decided that the Kirijo group should be invited in to give their pitch. Of course, there was no intention of spending tax money on the outlandish proposal. The police's interest in humoring the Kirijo group lay elsewhere. The Kirijo group had offered an incentive whereby if the police agreed to the meeting, they would provide a detailed list of the Ergonomics Research Lab's artifacts as well as actual samples. It was this that drove the official's decision. But there had been dark rumors bandied about the Kirijo group over the last 10 years. While still a family-run business, some said that old man Koetsu Kirijo had delved into delved into paranormal research and was performing inhumane experiments. It's fine. Maybe. They didn't almost destroy the world or something. The police collected enough evidence to test the rumor and had prepared many times to force an investigation. But every time the investigation came to nothing due to the group's exerting hidden pressure, frustrating those working on the case to no end. The investigation's prime target was the infamous Ergo Research, the Kirijo Ergonomics Research Lab. Exposing the Kirijo Group's dark side had been a dream of public safety for 10 years now. Now Kirijo seemed willing to hand over Ergo Research's tightly guarded secrets on a silver platter. No one knew the reason for this sudden about-face, but neither did anyone think of turning them down. They agreed to the summit not to hear out whatever proposal Kirijo was offering, but as a stepping stone towards the unearthing their past crimes. Time passed and the agreed upon time in the afternoon came. The man was tasked with watching over and bringing in the artifacts from the Kirijo Group. Though he would not speak with the guests, the police's plan afforded him a major responsibility, one that gave him something like a leading role. It wasn't long for the Kirijo car arrived in the underground The staff there to receive the guests only shrugged at the long black limousine that would have turned heads on the main roads. One of the youngest recruits looked towards the man and asked a question.
Chief, what's with that car?
But that was the least of the surprises in store. When the Kirijo Group representative stepped out of the limousine, she was revealed to be a beautiful young woman, no older than a university student. Not only that, but she had attendants dressed in what could only be described as maid uniforms. What? All of them were young women roughly her age. What? The scene mesmerized the various dignitaries present to greet her.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I am Mitsuru Kirijo, representing the Kirijo Group. It's nice to meet you.
What? Her brisk greeting radiated poise. From there, she shook hands with the assembled dignitaries in a manner that showed she was no stranger to social gatherings. Like, is it just to, like, horn up the people she's meeting?
She's the company rep? Really?
The young recruit, who was sneaking looks out of the corner of his eye, muttered in spite of himself.
Their proposal said the rep who's coming today would be the leader of this new unit, but I thought it was supposed to be some hardcore armed response team, and she's leading it? Well, I guess it's better than some meathead.
Shut up and hold your position.
But in truth, the man felt the same way. Certainly this monster extermination unit would never be incorporated, but even if it were, he was sure this wisp of a girl could never do such work. Same, I agree. I don't know, but she's good and portable when you can make her not do dumb shit. Eventually the dignitaries entered the agency along with Miss Kirijo. All of them wore lopsided smiles due to the young beauty's unexpected appearance, but that would do for now. The dignitaries were only there to receive her. Their true objective was to load it in the truck parked behind the limousine. The documents and artifacts of Ergo Research.
All right, start bringing them in.
Roger, sir.
At the man's signal, his trained subordinates surrounded the Kirijo truck. They formed a line, smoothly passing boxes from man to man in the building. The artifacts were of various sizes, with even a few that came in oversized metallic containers for aerial transport. One second. Alright, I'm back. We'll have a little bit extra time to record, so we can actually make this a fairly normal length video. I'll read this already. The Kirijo Group had warned them not to handle these things carelessly until explanations were forthcoming. But in truth, the department was already prepared to begin a forensic investigation of the objects, and even send them to the lab.
You sure it's okay for us to open these? The instructions said not to.
It won't be a real investigation if we let them hamstring our procedures.
Yeah, you're gonna detonate like a fucking nuclear bomb down here or something, opening up shit you shouldn't.
Besides, I can't think of anything they could send us that we couldn't handle. Unless there's real monsters inside these things.
He doesn't know. The articles were brought in silence. The operation only lasted about 15 minutes. The man himself received the last item, about the size of a jewelry box, and checked the truck to make sure nothing went overlooked before closing it up. That done, he turned and walked quickly towards the forensics room. Try though he might to maintain his composure, he couldn't contain the excitement he felt. For 10 years, the darkness of the Kirijo Group had been a frustrating legend, like mist between the department's fingers. Their chance to investigate and expose them was here at last. If even the slightest evidence matched the DNA of those who had gone missing or the victims of the unsolved cases, victory would be theirs. The man tried to tamp down exhilaration and look at the small box he held. There was no upper lid on the box. A pedestal-like protrusion at its center held up a number of small circular trinkets. Their usage was completely unknown. What kind of research produced these? Just as the man was about to hand the box to the window clerk, he saw a wedding ring on the clerk's finger, and came to a realization.
Huh. Are these rings?
We're not sure yet.
The man put on some protective latex gloves and tried one of the objects on. After looking at it from every angle, its color and shape seemed to be nothing but ordinary. If it was meant to be jewelry, it wasn't very attractive. The man couldn't picture scientists in lab coats slaving away in a lab to create rings like this. The moment that unlikely possibility came to mind, the man felt somewhat embarrassed by his ignorance of fashion and accessories. But as soon as he reached for the small box to put the ring back inside, darkness suddenly fell.
Please step away from the door.
The voice echoing in the man's mind brought him back to his reality. There went gravity. He took a few steps away from the door as directed and stood ready. Step away from the door. The more he thought about it, the stranger the order seemed. How did she know he was so close to the door when she wasn't even in the room? Suddenly, a chill filled the air. In mere seconds, the entire door was coated in white.
Where'd this ice come from?
It had frosted over. Man couldn't believe his eyes, but the evidence was there in front of him. He could then hear a slight knocking sound, followed by a crack forming in the center. The door buckled under its own weight and crumbled with a sound that was like building blocks being pushed over. Standing just past it was the Kirijo woman. She walked over to the man with exquisite nonchalance. At her side was one of the maids she brought.
Are you all right?
Yeah.
We did give you fair warning, but it seems to have gone unheeded.
The man looked towards the ring shining on his finger.
And this happened because we touched that box? What is this thing?
That ring gives its bearer an unstable form of pseudo-potential and allows anyone to experience the Dark Hour.
What?
The Dark Hour?
Yeah, it's like a thing or whatever, I don't know.
The box itself seems to be a failed recreation of the Dark Hour. The effect radius is small, and it malfunctions when improperly handled.
Okay. That was another thing, is like, I don't know when this, like, because this is like a flashback, right? It said it was like 2009. So I would have thought that the Dark Hour was like done. I would, you know. The Dark Hour, you remember that phrase coming up in documents the Kirijo group had sent? If he recalled correctly, it was defined as a hidden time, unable to be experienced by normal people. A time where everything stood still. According to the documents, it seemed to have occurred every night at midnight for about 10 years until spring 2010, as it was forcing its way into normal time. Before now, it seemed like a pure fantasy. But could this silent darkness be the very same thing?
So you're saying those stories in that document, that occult-sounding stuff was actually for real?
At that moment, a voice suddenly echoed from beyond the hallway, past the broken door.
Who's there?
The man reflexively called out in alarm, realizing that the fear had not yet died down. What emerged from the darkness was the young recruit who had greeted the guests earlier, and had been helping with the bringing in the artifacts. He was staggering as if severely drunk.
Chief! Hey, are you alright?
The man started to rush to his side. The Kirijo woman silently stopped him. He stood between the two as if protecting the man.
What? He's my...
Before he could finish, a surprising change overtook the recruit. Knew I shouldn't have eaten that Taco Bell. The recruit fell to the ground with an agonized scream. A black tar-like substance began flowing from his every orifice. The ooze spread unnaturally across the ground and cohered into a glob. It rose up like a beast, raising its head, and with like claws began to form. Its appearance showed clear signs that it possessed some malevolent will. The man thought again about the Kirijo group's initial proposal. We wished to collaborate with the police on an unofficial department for eliminated monsters. Without a doubt, this is what they were referring to. And the name that came up again and again was...
This is a shadow.
That it is. It's a monster that dwells in every person's heart. They usually can't manifest themselves this way, but it's quite common to see it happen during the dark hour.
So the research to make this happen artificially. That's what Kirijo has been experimenting with.
That did seem to be the extent of it. At the start.
At the start. The man couldn't prevent himself from shuddering, imagining the implications of her statement. With the second roar, the half-liquefied shadow suddenly took the form of some fell beast. But where the face should have been, there was nothing but a mask, giving it the bizarre appearance of two creatures stitched together. The young woman, for her part, seemed not in the least perturbed.
Kikuno, my things, please.
The maid stooped to reach something. The man wasn't sure where she had been carrying it, but she placed a sword in her master's hand. The blade was specially shaped, similar in design to a fencing saber.
You're going to fight it?
Yeah.
Stay back. This will all be over soon.
At that moment, as if understanding their conversation, the shadow squared itself and leapt towards the young woman. Its speed matched its beastly appearance. In the darkness of the room, the man found it difficult to simply keeping his eyes on it. The young woman did not move. Her sword remained lowered in the face of the shadow's advance. Of course, thought the man, an amateur like her could never react in time. However...
Artemisia!
At a word from the young woman, some unseen force slammed the shadow against a wall. The man momentarily doubted his own eyes, for it hadn't been the woman who repelled the monster, but a silhouette that suddenly appeared behind her. It looked as though the being enveloped in sublime light, contrasting the shadow's dark glow, was a woman wearing a majestic dress. The silhouette held up a hand towards the grounded shadow. Once again, the man felt freezing air fill the room. And with that, the shadow stopped moving. Frost crystallized all over it, turning it into an ice sculpture within seconds. Only then, what if it was just happened to be immune to ice? Man, she'd be fucked. Only then did the young woman swing the sword in her hand. A white gleam arced through the air. Upon impact, the frozen enemy shattered like it had been crystallized sugar rather than ice. The victory was so one-sided, the man hesitated to call it a battle.
Are you all right?
The young woman turned towards the man. The sound of her boots hitting the floor gave him the jarring realization that she hadn't moved a single step during the fray. Seeing that he was at a loss for words, she gave him a gentle smile. It was all too much for the man. He actually felt relieved to be protected by this small woman. One thing was obvious. He had been through countless battles, much like the one he just witnessed.
Your fallen employee's life is in no danger, but he'll be very weak. Make sure he gets to a hospital. Should I make the arrangements?
No, I should at least handle that. It is a public security matter.
A nod, the young woman approached the small box and manipulated it in a way that he couldn't quite catch. The eerie yellow-green light began to fade. Moments later, the silence and darkness faded too. The world had been restored. The man felt his body become suddenly lighter, causing him to breathe a sigh of relief. He hadn't realized until the pressure was gone that the air had been suffocating, as if he had been underwater. There was a stir of movement in the room. Well, I mean, if you're underwater, I feel like it'd be more than suffocating. Like, you know, you can't breathe underwater. The forensics team and the assistants looked at the man and young woman perplexed. I mean, I get what they're going for, like the pressure, like, you know, when you're underwater, there's extra pressure, but the man took a quick look around. Fragments of the shattered door were strewn about. A young public security worker was lying unconscious nearby, and the Kirijo guest, who had entered without anyone noticing, held in her hand a drawn sword. Yeah, it's nothing.
I'd be shocked too if I were them.
It occurred to him that if normal people couldn't sense the dark hour, the sudden change in circumstances may have seemed to them like some magic trick.
Excuse me, but this place is off limits to all unauthorized personnel.
Yeah, she has a sword though. I feel like that's like the ultimate authorization.
Hey, What's going on here?
The forensic staff looked at the man helplessly.
It's alright. We had a little emergency.
Oh.
That aside, halt all examination of the relics they brought in. We'll wait for further instructions from the Kirijo group.
Huh? But you said...
If there are any boxes that are closed, don't force them open. Not if you don't want to come face to face with monsters.
Leaving the frowning forensics team behind him, the man quickly went into the hallway with the Kirijo woman.
I have to thank you for your help. And about the conference, I'll join in as well. It's been arranged so nothing you say would get through to the higher-ups.
The young woman was surprised at what amounted to a confession of betrayal. She didn't show it.
Are you saying you will reconsider your plans?
I can't overlook anything as serious as this. I wouldn't be doing my job as public security if I did. But make no mistake, the things I saw today are proof of the sins the Kirijo group has committed. They can't be punished under the law, but now that they're known, atonement will be made in some shape or form.
Indeed. I never intended anything less.
You really put one over on us this time.
Hmm?
Oh, there's no need to be coy. What happened today was no accident, was it? We'd never have believed the reports unless we saw it in person. That's why such a dangerous box had no lid. Am I wrong?
There was no lid. That's not possible. That box was classified as risk level 3.
Not risk level 3.
It should have been securely fastened.
That's one level lower than risk level 4. The young woman fell silent, then gasped and gave the maid walking silent beside her a look.
Kikuno.
The maid continued without the slightest sign of remorse and left her master behind. Oh, so she did it on purpose? Both the man and the young woman sighed at once.
Us guys in public security have a reputation for being tough. But it seems like you guys are no slouches yourselves.
Summit that was meant to be a perfunctory refusal took an unexpected turn. Promises were made to continue the talks. 6 months passed, and after many opportunities to show the actual samples the dignitaries were set up, the proposed special unit was established in mostly the form Kirijo requested. Security Department, the Shadow Response Unit. It was the inauguration of the special unit that would in time be nicknamed the Shadow Operatives. Indeed, the Shadow Operatives. I'm quite fond of the name. Not that I normally pay much heed to these things, but in this case I admit to being pleased. It started as sarcasm on the part of the higher-ranked personnel from the police. It could be taken to mean those who deal with shadows, but the real meaning is those who operate in the shadows. Not only is the unit unofficial, we have the difficult-to-credit job of exterminating monsters. Mostly I suspect it was a dig at a group that disturbed the expected peaceful years of the older personnel's retirement. But Shadow Operatives could also mean one who does unrewarded, albeit crucial work for society. It's a name truly befitting of this organization's goals. We're approaching the first anniversary of the Shadow Operatives establishment. Though we're still at the level of basic investigation and laying groundwork, it seems a full-scale case has arisen.
Fighting is not our first option, but I'd be more
it's so
reassured
good.
with you there. We have a general idea of where it was taken, the Inaba area, where there were reports of suspected shadow activity last year.
Good as it is to hear from an old reliable friend, I limit the call to a quick exchange of information.
I'll send you the precise location later. Sorry to call when you've just returned from a trip, but I'm relying on your assistance.
Oh, he's gonna put you in a trance. Oh, the Persona 3 soundtrack is something else. I closed my cell and turned towards my colleague.
He's only just returned and he's going directly to the location from the airport. Akihiko never changes.
The man I was on the phone with just now was Akihiko Sonata. He's one of our non-permanent staff. Akihiko is an excellent Persona user, but beyond that, he's a skilled boxer and he's also a little fucking crazy. He's a friend of mine from high school who fought the shadows alongside me. I admire his strict determination to never neglect his training, but the extreme lengths he goes can be rather inconvenient. After entering college, he accepted my invitation to be one of the founding Shadow Operatives, but it was his actions afterward that went above and beyond. Sure, I'll join, but if I'm gonna use my strength professionally, I want to get my skills to a level I'm happy with first. Thus began his training expedition. I can't read this time. Anytime they say put you in a trance, I'm gonna laugh. He's not only wandering the country, he's traveling the entire world. I can't decide whether to be dumbfounded or impressed by his dedication to training. All of this is to say that he only just returned to Japan to take part in this operation. I give a wry smile and lean back in my chair. Seeing me relax, the girl watching nearby smiles. This is Aigis, known for her blonde hair and piercing blue eyes. She's a sweet girl on the outside, but she has what it takes to be an important member of our squad.
Will we be able to find Labris? My sister?
When I look over at Aigis, her eyes are cast downward with a worried expression.
Will we be able to save her? Isn't that what you really want to ask?
She must have known once I called Akihiko in as backup. There is a possibility that we will have to fight Labris, knowing that it's not a great leap to imagine that, in the worst case, she may have to be destroyed. And alas, it's true. If all else fails to our safety, and our safety is at risk and no other way to stop her, the odd option is on the table. Still,
don't worry. As I mentioned to Akihiko, fighting Labris is not our priority. The reason I formed this shadow operative team is to save lives. We will find her, whatever it takes, and bring her back. We can do this.
Yes. I'm sorry to be so pessimistic.
Those feelings you have for Labris, you should tell her when you see her.
I will.
the monitor is showing certain data under multiple redundant encryptions. Keijo Economics Research Lab, confidential matters. There is in fact a reason I'm reviewing these materials that are normally securely concealed. Because 2 days ago on May 1st, I was unexpectedly dragged into a serious incident. The passenger plane I was taken to Kagoshima was hijacked. There hasn't been a domestic hijacking for 10 years. Top brass of the police, afraid to make any mistakes, sent in shadow operatives. The case itself was resolved quickly and all the culprits arrested. None of the passengers were harmed either. But the hijacker's true motive wasn't the terrorism or political demands, as one would expect. I was surprised to find they were really after my cargo. It was a sealed box from the Ergonomics Research Lab. We were transporting it to Yakushima on that flight. No one thought that the risky hijacking could have been in pursuit of just the cargo, and as a result, one of the objects was stolen. The arrested suspects are all in police custody, but none of them have any memory of carrying out the crime. Someone was pulling their strings and very probably using uncommon methods. Considering the puppet master was targeting shadow-related cargo, I doubt they'll be easy to deal with. As for what was stolen, I just mentioned its name a moment ago. The 5th generation anti-shadow suppression weapon, Labris, is an older model from 2 generations ago. Since shadow-related ergo research documents were lost in an accident, we know little about Labris. She is an android, most likely a female version just like Aigis, because the scientists are horny. But instead of a weapon loadout, she seemed to have been fitted with some kind of experimental equipment. That's all we know. Still, thanks to our collaborators' quick wit, the escaping vehicle was traced with the N system. It wasn't easy, but we managed to pinpoint its location. It was headed for the city of Inobo, where there may have been shadow activity last year. Once the preparations to depart are complete, I'll head there myself. My mind wanders a bit. Though I was unaware of them, the shadow of the sins committed in the Keijo's name is still so painful 10 years on that I sometimes want to avert my eyes. But now is not the time to be bound by the past. Now is the time to act. I suddenly notice that Aigis has been staring at me worriedly. I give her a smile and stand up decisively. We're pulling up to Yasu Inoba, the central town of Inoba. Though it's the central town, the main street seems nearly deserted, and there's virtually no activity to be seen through the car windows. It was confirmed that the vehicle transporting Labris was abandoned here. So our first move would be to confirm the situation. Or so I thought. I attempt to ignore the rude stares of people trying to get a look inside the car, focusing instead on the scent of my tea. People keep crowding around whenever we park. We've had to move it a number of times already. We didn't get a moment's peace until the car had reached the junkyard on the outskirts of town. As I try and keep from sighing, Aiga speaks up from her seat in front of me.
Mitsuru-san, our activities are supposed to be undercover, correct?
Yes.
Then why have you chosen the most conspicuous vehicle
For
possible?
undercover missions, it will be necessary to keep all personnel and vehicles from being noticed.
Yes.
Right.
This has got like the "this is your wallet" meme.
Mitsuru-san, may I say something that I've been meaning to say for a while now?
No.
Understood.
Aiga's poker face is perfect blank. Though I understand what she's getting at, I've actually wanted to say something along those lines to the people around me for a while. Still, it would be galling to hear it from someone else right now.
All I told them was to give us a car with enough space.
Our contact has arrived.
The man approaching us is someone whose cooperation I specifically requested. His name is Detective Kurosawa. Before I can welcome him, Aiga speaks
Oh
up.
my. This was not our designated meeting area, yet he has discovered us.
You want to know how I did it?
Don't say it.
Ahem.
Lately it feels that whenever Aiga wants to voice her opinion to me, she intentionally puts on the robot act. They mentioned this at the lab, that if Aiga still speaks in that stiff formal manner, either she's getting too human and is developing habits, or she's doing it on purpose.
We
Honestly.
appreciate your cooperation, Detective Kurosawa.
Long time no see, miss. And I guess, was it?
Indeed. It has been a while.
Detective Kurosawa was an officer at the police box near the school we attended 3 years ago. He was shunned for cooperating with us and got busted back down to officer, but that was the now the shadow operatives are officially recognized, he's in their good graces again. A man who can be trusted beyond the confines of his station to solve a case, even going so far as to bend the rules. He's a rare breed. Detective Kurosawa's expression has softened while he makes small talk with Aigus, which makes me realize that this may be the first time he's seen Aigus in her combat form.
I shouldn't make you stand while we talk. Please, get in.
Ah, sorry. I haven't seen you in a while, so I had a lot to say.
He must understand that we are trying to go incognito. Though it's kind of him not to point out that our vehicle and attire are completely unsuited to that goal as he enters the limousine, he sits and does not even wait until the door is closed before getting to the point. We'll see what Kurosawa has to tell us next time, and we'll enter the TV as old Mitzi. I'm Extra Cheesy 87. Stay tuned for the next part. And bye, guys.